Hello friends and neighbors, it is Wednesday, September 21st. Autumn is 2 days away, so why the hell is it so hot?
So what am I doing?
Thanks for joining me.
What are you filming for?
So today I wanted to share with you a brain crack idea that I had. For those of you that don't know, brain crack is a term that Zay Frank came up with. It's basically a term for an idea that you have, and it's a great idea, it's a wonderful idea, and you love this idea, and you love thinking about this idea, and you love developing this idea and tweaking this idea, but you never do anything with this idea because you are addicted to the brain crack. I have this problem a lot. Most of my brain crack comes in the form of story ideas, things that I think would make good books, or good movies, or good something. And the funny thing about this particular story idea that I had is that it is almost identical to a story idea that my friend Maggie had, but more on that in a minute. So now I'm going to share with you the brain crack idea, but before I share with you the idea itself, I have to share with you the inspiration for the idea. This is Chrononauts. It is a combination role-playing game and card game. And as you might have been able to guess from the title, it has to do with time travel. I love time travel. Right, so in this game you take the role of a time traveler, somebody who can travel through time, but also somebody whose job it is to fix paradoxes in the space-time continuum. How do these paradoxes occur? Well, because people go back and change history. In this particular perception of time, history is made up of two different points. Linchpins, which can be changed directly, and ripple points, which can only be changed indirectly by changing linchpins. So let's say, for example, that you want to prevent the Titanic from sinking. You play the appropriate card, you change the event so that the Titanic just barely avoids the iceberg and does not sink. But now that you have done that, this changes a future event in 1929, and so you have a paradox, which you then have to repair with a different event for 1929 called a patch. You patch up the paradox, the timeline is fixed, and everyone is happy, particularly all those that did not die on the Titanic. So why would you want to make these changes in the first place? Well, because you are playing a time traveler, and each time traveler has a very specific identity. He has a backstory, and he also has a reality that he or she comes from. This reality contains three different events. One of these events is shared with our timeline, the true timeline, but two of the events are alternate timelines. Squatront, for example, comes from a timeline where the Great Depression still happened in the early 30s, but where the Cuban Missile Crisis did not end quite as well as it ended here, and resulted in World War III in 1962. So one of the ways that you can win is to manipulate the timeline in such a way so that all three of these events come to pass, and then you can go home to your world that has been pretty much obliterated by World War III. There's also a whole other aspect of the game involving missions and artifacts and things that you can collect, but this isn't important to my story, so we're just going to ignore it. So this game, much like a lot of games that I like, contains a lot of stories. Stories about the characters, stories about how the timeline got changed and what the results were, a lot of what-if things, a lot of things that I really, really enjoy. And so it got me to thinking about another story. This story takes place several years in the future when time travel has been invented. In point of fact, time travel had been around for quite a while, but it had been kept top secret and used only by the government and historians and people who would use it responsibly. But eventually, as often happens, the press got wind of it, corporations got wind of it, and it had to be released to the public. Which it was, for about 2 weeks, after which it became apparent that people couldn't use time travel responsibly because the timeline was changing willy-nilly and there were paradoxes opening up left, right, center, and they had to be repaired, and it was just a mess. So they recalled all the time travel devices, they banned the public from ever time traveling again, but of course, once Pandora's box is open, it cannot be easily closed, and illegal devices remained, and so there had to remain some sort of agency around to fix the timeline should it get polluted. So basically what they do is that they post guards at all of these different events in time that are susceptible to being changed, like Lincoln's assassination, or the Titanic disaster, or Kennedy's assassination, anything that people would be likely to come and try to change. And I was talking about this game to my sister, and she started telling me about this idea that her friend Maggie had had, and it was exactly the same. Maggie may actually be watching this video. If you are, Maggie, great minds think alike, and I swear I didn't steal your idea. So because of this idea that I've had, I've been looking at a lot of things like this that explore kind of the what-ifs of history, and I've discovered some pretty interesting things. Like, what would have happened if Andrew Johnson had been assassinated along with Abraham Lincoln, like he was supposed to be? Or what would have happened if William Henry Harrison hadn't died of pneumonia 1 month into his term and had been allowed to serve a full term as president? Interesting ideas, these. So that's my brain crack idea. I am hoping to actually do something with it. I'm actually hoping to maybe make this my NaNoWriMo project this year. Haven't really decided yet. We'll see how things progress. And until tomorrow, I've been Matt Guyan, and where we're going, we don't need roads. That last bit was for you, Chase. Glad you enjoyed Back to the Future.